I would ask if the people who are more towards the back of the room would like to join us more up here. You're more than welcome. Wonderful. Like that, we're getting a little bit closer. Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Julie Shire. I'm a correspondent for CCTV News, but some of you might know me from doing a few of these movies for BizClim, and I've had the opportunity to speak to many of you in the 3 regions, so that was a pleasure. Thank you very much. And today, I'd like to invite you all to participate in BizClim's closing workshop, and I am sure we have a lot to talk about, and unfortunately, too little time, but we'll proceed anyway. So, as I said, I'm Julie Shire, and I'm very happy to be here today because it gives us the opportunity to look back at BizClim's great work throughout these 5 years, and it also gives us the opportunity to talk about the successes, but also about the lessons that have been learned throughout the 5 years. I believe BizClim doesn't need any introduction, but it's worth remembering that together with everyone that is here and many other people, BizClim, the team, worked very hard in ensuring that sustainable and inclusive growth happened in ACP countries and regions, bringing better business and investment climate altogether. BizClim, as you will know, is a demand-driven. When handling applications, it worked on a first-come, first-served basis, and for 5 years it fostered a business-enabling environment in ACP countries and improved the legislation, the institutional framework, and assisted financial measures relating to the enabling environment of the private sector. Today we're here to obviously reflect on that work, and to comment further, I would like to invite Ambassador Roy Mickey-Joy, Chairman of the Committee of Ambassadors, a man who wears many hats, as you all know, and he is also well known for his advocacy towards greater effectiveness and enhanced ACP collaboration. While his interests are global, he knows that BizClim has done a great job, as he will tell himself. But also, he will talk about. You will tell us what you will talk about. I won't put my words into your mouth. But having said that, Ambassador was able to unlock many opportunities as well when it comes to the Pacific region, and therefore we thank you for being here today, and we'd love to hear from you. Thank you very much, Ambassador.
Thank you, Julie. I think I'd like to first of all begin by welcoming colleagues and invited guests who've been able to join us this afternoon. In particular, I also wanted to acknowledge the invitation from my friend Mohamed Sharif for inviting me to be present and to be part of this important ceremony, closing ceremony of the current phase of the BizClim project. But before I do that, I wanted simply to acknowledge the presence of some of our senior ambassadors. Ambassador Gapal from Guinea-Bissau is with us, Ambassador Wilfred Christopher from Suriname, the ambassador from Uganda. Excellency, thank you for joining us, and thank you for finding time amidst your hectic schedule to join us. I wanted to begin by joining Julie just simply to place on record our most profound appreciation for those who've been able to join us this afternoon. Those from DG DEFCO, please welcome, and we believe your role within the Commission is bifocal and is fundamental in the previous life of BizClim and even to the future. Those representing ASG Vivanu, Dr. Maximin can be able to join us. He's here, he's in charge of private sector development in ACP. Mr. Mohamed Sharif, the director, head of BizClim distinguished invited guest, my good friend Mr. Key Stilamba from the COLA-SAP. Thank you for joining us. Madam Isolina Boto from CDA. And one of my few friends I'd like to acknowledge is Paulo Dane, formerly with CDE, and who knew the Pacific region very well. So thank you, Paulo, for joining us. Paulo now represents the Euro Chamber, which is in a European institution in Europe, representing the private sector and Chamber of Commerce. I understand there was a session this morning, and a few of our ambassadors, senior ambassadors, participated in looking at reflection on the work of the BSCLIM. For us, BSCLIM provides a very important opportunity and a window of opportunity for our private sectors. I remember a few years ago, it wasn't back as early as 2011. I was sitting in a subcommittee meeting and I had a presentation from Mr. Sheriff himself. So I went up to him and asked him, what is BSCLIM and what do you guys do? At that point in time, nobody in the Pacific knew about BSCLIM. So politely I asked Mr. Sheriff if he could agree on an appointment or an audience with me in my embassy. So we had a meeting. And that meeting at that point in time culminated in a series of other events that followed. That visit also saw a visit first time for the director of BSCLIM to go to Pacific. We organized a regional meeting with all Pacific Island private sectors exporters in Vanuatu. Subsequently, on the occasion of the Joint Council of Ministers meeting held in Vanuatu in June of 2012, BSCLIM, I must admit, played a huge role in supporting the event of the Joint Council, but also exposing, getting private sectors together in a very challenging and difficult period, I must confess. And I was also happy that there was a great degree of participation coming from the European side that participated in that meeting in Vanuatu, which at the end of the day culminated in one of the final outcome that was built into the outcome of the successful ACBU Joint Council of Ministers meeting held in my country in Vanuatu in 2012. That did not stop BSCLIM's evolution and role in the Pacific, and even to the extent of the Caribbean continued to take precedence. But given the role of BSCLIM and their mandate, which has come to an end, I simply wanted to echo to colleagues around the table the fact that BSCLIM has the potential to play an important role, particularly in two particular elements. First and foremost, the demise of the CDE. I have raised in this particular house and in a number of major subcommittee meetings how CDE at one point in time was an effective instrument of joint cooperation that brings together the private sectors and the SMEs all over the ACP fraternity, the ACP diaspora, and the difference it could make in blending and supporting private sector development to the next stage. I remember at one stage my antenna of CD antenna in Vanuatu at one point in time was the most effective. We had over 87 projects in a 12-month period, and that was a record in CD. Now that all of us as committee members of the Committee of Ambassadors in the South have come to accept the fate that Europeans are closing down officially the Center of Development of Enterprise, we have appointed a curator by the Commission to oversee the process into winding up of the CDE. There's a huge vacuum that is now left. On the one hand, the CDE will be closed in the next 6 months, I assume. I'm sure at the next semester of the Committee of Ambassadors, when we meet on the 17th of September in this house, to be chaired by my successor, the distinguished ambassador of the Kingdom of Lesotho, the issue of CDE and the report from the curator has to be submitted back to the committee. On the other hand, we have this proposed ACP private sector development strategy of 600 million euros available perhaps to support the ACP private sector development interest and assessment and needs. Now, while these two issues go on in hand, The close of CD has brought in a lot of challenges and, thoughts and thinking loudly into the ACP vacuum itself. Which agency has the competency and the responsibility to assume the role that's been left by CD now, where there would be a stronger focus, particularly on the role, facilitation of private sector in the large ACB region. I've asked myself the question, is it CDA? Is it COLEACB? Or is it the new large structure that is being mooted to be developed and become existent in this house? Now, colleagues, we have to be very honest and serious about this. In order to be able to effectively utilize and be party to this new ACB private sector development strategy that all of us have aspired to, it is in our interest in the next few years, in the next 5 years, that we need to be able to ensure there's an independent entity that can be able to effectively address the petty issues faced by our day-to-day private sector operators in our countries. Let me also share with you the fact that for far too long, we believe in technical assistance that is given to private sectors in our own regions. Out of the technical assistance, at least 17.5% of the entire volume of the money is given to the management of the company or the firm that is supposed to manage that particular project. Notwithstanding the amount of support from that particular project that is paid to consultants both within the country and the region and externally. These things are beyond ACB and beyond an ambassador's control. Now, the bottom line is that at the end of the day, considering any amount of project that has been supported, and we in ACB do support that particular project within the intra-ACP programming and through the Technical Cooperation Fund, it is sad to say that among all these things, there is very little value coming out from this assistance to support the real people on ground. Those are our small, medium-sized private sector operators. The size economies of scale in private sector in Africa, Caribbean and Pacific differs quite significantly. Where I come from, private sector constitute or comprises mainly of family units owning a few land areas that have come together collectively to be able to support a particular entity. That is different from bigger countries, where you have bigger investments, not to mention resource base in terms of minerals, gold, and recently the evolution of liquefied natural gas. So my question, my challenge here, basically Mastan has been able to fill in to a large extent some of the role that has been left missing in the demise of CD. And on that note, I wanted to thank Bisclim, I want to thank Mohammed Sharif and his team, the Secretary General of the ACP and his team, particularly before Vivano, my good friend, Mr. Basilican, who was also very, very passionate about the role of Bisclim. You will realize in this gathering this afternoon, we've got our friends coming from far and near, not only within the European continent, but as far as the Pacific and the Caribbean. We have representatives from the Pacific Island Private Sector Organization, Matamali Shitunga, who's with us all the way from Fiji. And we're expecting my friend also, Mr. Spizion Oliveira, from the Caribbean Export Development Agency, based in Barbados, or in Santo Domingo, who's supposed to be joining us to share his experience with us. But to cut a long story short, I understand you've had long discussion this morning. My message basically is twofold. One, the role of CD that has been recognized by most of the ambassadors. The fate has been decided since Nairobi in June of 2014. With the advent evolution of the new ACB private sector development strategy that is being negotiated, is being mooted within this house, we have to be able to find and identify an appropriate authority and agency and a competent authority to assist the ACP to be able to reach out, to manage, coordinate effectively how private sectors in our region of the ACP can be able to draw benefit from this new facility. There is talks within the House that 400 million out of the 600 million would go to blending and be managed by the European Investment Bank in Luxembourg. Who has agreed to this? The partnership between ACP and EU is based on mutual understanding and negotiations. We would like our partners to come forward and say, yes, this is the way forward. There should be no presumption about it. Second, and importantly, we need to identify an appropriate, as I mentioned, agency that can be able to represent effectively and in the interest of ACP private sectors, how private sectors can be able to become much more dependent with the support of this new facility, can be able to rise up to meet the challenges. ACP is at a very critical juncture. We are between 2015 halfway, 4.5 years ago, 2020. The Cotonou Agreement was signed, I think, on the 19th of June, 2000 in Benin. So those are the challenges we face. I'm glad we have around the table very serious, passionate people who have followed closely and over the years the role of BSCLIM. We in the Pacific have, I must confirm, have benefited significantly from the intervention of BSCLIM, either through the value chain, the cluster programs, Mohammed, or interacting and engaging our private sectors to be able to address core issues. In Vanuatu, ours is on tourism. And I must confess, we've benefited largely from the support given by BSCLIM to support our industry. My only call to this meeting is that while we've come to the end of the current program of BSCLIM, it would be a remiss on our part at a point in time when private sector issues are becoming so prevalent, so important to ACP. We are not going to go back and try and resurrect the dead of CD. However, we need to be able to identify an appropriate authority and agency that has the ability, has the prerequisite, has the requirement to address and to be responsible to our private sector development in ACP states. Colleagues, for far too long we talk about private sector development as a concept without any meaningful implication. Time must come, colleagues, for ACP to be able to realize and support our small, medium enterprises and our private sector interest within the ACP diaspora. We were recently on an annual visit to European Investment Bank in Luxembourg. It was raised yesterday by the distinguished ambassador of Guinea-Bissau, whether there is any real value on an annual basis. Ambassadors travel by bus to Luxembourg. They have nice lunch over by the bank. They have discussions. What is the real value of this? So time has come, colleagues, I address this. I also wanted to welcome SG Vivanu. Vivanu will join us. SG Vivanu has a difficult task. His task is to be able to ensure that the 600 million euro that has been allocated to private sector development is put into good use. SG, please join us. And let me conclude by saying simply the fact that we value the role of BSCLIM. It is our understanding that in light of any support that comes, particularly from the ACP private development strategy, there should be consideration as to how private sector in our region could be addressed. Considering the demise of the CDE, the difficult process that we face in terms of our private sector, and the support that we need to allocate and give to our growing private sector interest in the ACP diaspora. So on that note, Julie, distinguished colleagues, SG Vivanu, thank you for joining us. My message is simply to say, while we've come to the end of the current program of BSCLIM, it could be the beginning of a new beginning, and the beginning of a new beginning that we could start now, and ask to see how ACP can be able to support such an important facility. The reflection, the assessment on ACP and BSCLIM's work in different regions and countries and regions differ quite significantly. But BSCLIM is a demand-driven organization. When requests are submitted, they would follow through and be able to ensure effective response to that. So once again, it has been an honor to be able to work closely with BSCLIM, with Sheriff and your team, and I wish all the best of success, and that I believe this afternoon gathering can be able to produce results and provide an audience and an environment. We have free and open exchanges in support of your program. So once again, Lady of Ceremony, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to share with you my thoughts and reflection on the benefits of BSCLIM in my region. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador. I make my words yours because I think that was very relevant points and extremely interesting that you just raised, and especially with such challenging times in which the whole world finds itself. So thank you. I appreciate your remarks, and I'm sure the BSCLIM also appreciates. Well, we are going to be joined by two people, I believe, who are going to Skype us in a few minutes. So I'm not sure if they are ready or lined up.
Yes, Mr. Traoré
Is Mr. Traoré ready for us? So is Julia? Should we go with the Skype, or okay? I wouldn't want to left. So we're going to be joined for another testimony by Mr. Khalilo Traoré, forgive my pronunciation, Commissioner Industry and Private Sector Promotion, ECOWAS. Mr. Khalilo, hello, nice to see you up there. I hope you can hear us loud and clear. Yes? Wonderful. So let me just give a very brief introduction who Mr. Traoré is. He is an advocate of sustainable inclusive industrial development of the region and its integration in the global value chains. So thank you so much for joining us here, Mr. Traoré, and we'd like to know a little bit more about your thoughts. So feel free to enlighten us with your words.
Ok, merci beaucoup. J'espère que je peux parler en français. C'est bon? Ok, je voulais donc adresser
Sorry, the sound quality is too poor to provide interpreting into English.
l'ambassadeur, président du comité des ambassadeurs, messieurs les honorables participants, au secrétaire général des ACP, à M. Mohamed Chérif et à toute l'équipe et à toutes les personnes présentes. C'est un honneur pour moi de participer donc à cette discussion.
Sorry, the sound quality is too poor to provide interpreting.
Pour exprimer également nos points de vue sur le programme BSCLIM et sur nos attentes. Alors, comme je n'attendrai à personne le fait que la question du climat des affaires est extrêmement importante pour nous, parce que tout le monde s'accorde à dire que le secteur privé doit être le moteur du développement et que pour cela, il convient de créer un environnement favorable au développement des affaires. Vous le savez très bien, le déficit d'investissement dans nos régions reste faible et cela repose essentiellement encore sur la qualité de l'environnement des affaires. Donc, nous avons besoin dans nos pays d'un accompagnement important en termes d'expertise sur l'amélioration du climat des affaires. Et en cela, nous remercions fortement BSCLIM et l'Union européenne pour les appuis que nous avons reçus tout au long de ce programme. Alors, après avoir dit ça, permettez-moi de faire un bref rappel sur la CEDEAO. La CEDEAO qui regroupe donc 15 pays avec plus de 300 millions d'habitants a été créée pour, n'est-ce pas, réaliser un espace de paix, de stabilité, un espace également économique favorable au développement du secteur privé. Et c'est dans ce sens donc que nous travaillons, notamment pour la réalisation du marché commun régional. Et là-dessus, nous avons pu réaliser un certain nombre de choses, notamment une zone de libre-échange depuis 2000. une union douanière qui a commencé effectivement cette année. Nous avons développé un certain nombre de politiques sectorielles. Nous avons mis en place des règles de concurrence et nous avons un programme de coopération pour la monnaie unique et bien sûr tout un ensemble de programmes d'interconnexion des différents réseaux de transport, de télécommunications, d'énergie, tout cela pour créer un environnement favorable aux affaires. Nous continuons donc sur cette lancée avec un certain nombre de projets en cours, notamment la mise en place, n'est-ce pas, d'une politique et d'un compte commun d'investissement, la mise en place de mécanismes d'intégration des systèmes financiers et la réalisation d'un cadre régional au niveau des partenariats public-privé. Alors, nous avons eu un partenariat avec BISCLIM donc ces dernières années qui nous a beaucoup aidé dans la réalisation de nos objectifs, n'est-ce pas, de marché commun. Je voudrais citer quelques éléments de ce partenariat. C'est donc l'organisation de la première conférence sur l'investissement avec l'appui de BISCLIM à Bruxelles. L'élaboration du cadre de politique d'investissement qui nous permet aujourd'hui d'aller vers un code commun d'investissement. L'élaboration fait de l'appui pour la formulation du projet Abidjan-Lagos, qui est un des corridors les plus importants, n'est-ce pas, pour le commerce intra-régional. Nous avons également bénéficié de l'étude de faisabilité du mécanisme de garantie des investissements et nous avons également bénéficié de l'élaboration d'un document de monitoring des indicateurs de climat des affaires. Alors, nous savons aujourd'hui avec l'expérience que l'amélioration du climat des affaires n'est pas une chose facile, est une œuvre de longue haleine, parce que cela nécessite des changements importants dans les habitudes et dans les capacités. Parce que également les changements nécessaires font souvent peur et font face à des intérêts publics ou privés qui sont déjà établis et qui n'ont pas envie de ces changements. Quand bien même les réformes arrivent à être faites, quand bien même les décisions sont prises, la mise en œuvre n'est pas toujours facile en raison notamment des faiblesses de capacité et aussi quelquefois des faiblesses de volonté. Mais l'effort d'amélioration du climat des affaires est quelque chose qui doit se poursuivre et c'est dans ce sens que nous nous inscrivons. Alors, les pays de la CEDEAO ont fait des progrès dans bien des domaines, démocratie, gouvernance, sécurité, commerce, investissement, mais la majorité des pays, comme vous le savez, restent encore dans le bas des classements des rapports Doing Business de la Banque mondiale. C'est une situation qui nous interpelle pour doubler d'efforts et pour surtout affiner notre approche sur des objectifs plus concrets. Nous comptons donc pour cela accorder une place importante à ces objectifs concrets à travers le développement des chaînes de valeur et des politiques sectorielles autour desquelles, n'est-ce pas, les questions de gouvernance vont être également abordées. Nous avons pour cela élaboré une stratégie du secteur privé et une stratégie industrielle qui mettent l'accent sur la question de gouvernance d'une façon générale, sur la question de l'environnement des affaires, mais sur le fait d'aborder ces questions autour des chaînes de valeur bien précises. Alors, je voudrais donc arriver à la conclusion de mon propos pour dire que le besoin d'assistance technique pour l'amélioration du climat des affaires reste important pour les pays de la CEDEAO. Nos objectifs prioritaires visent à permettre au secteur privé d'investir davantage pour tirer profit notamment de la croissance du marché régional, dont le niveau, n'est-ce pas, de consommation augmente sans arrêt, pour tirer profit des accords internationaux comme l'APE que la région a conclu avec l'Union européenne et qui est, n'est-ce pas, en phase de signature. Il ne reste plus que 2 pays pour signer et finir le cycle de signature, et aussi pour profiter de
l'AGOA, qui est aussi un autre accord commercial qui nous ouvre le marché américain, bien sûr, pour tirer profit également de tout le potentiel de nos échanges en pleine croissance avec les autres pays africains et ACP. Donc, pour pouvoir tirer profit de toutes ces opportunités régionales, continentales et internationales, il nous faut continuer de travailler inlassablement sur l'amélioration du climat des affaires. Nous espérons donc que la clôture de ce programme ne devrait pas laisser un vide. Ne devrait pas laisser un vide sur cette question, notamment pour le développement des affaires entre les ACP et l'Union européenne. Nous espérons et nous souhaitons, nous appelons de tous les vœux, que BizClean puisse continuer de jouer un rôle important dans l'assistance technique et dans l'intermédiation entre, n'est-ce pas, nos régions et l'Union européenne. Je vous remercie.
Thank you, Mr. Traoré, for joining us beyond borders. That was great. I do apologize. Can you hear us, Mr. Traoré?
Hello.
Hello? Can you hear us? Yes?
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining us. Merci. I do apologize. There are occasionally these technical
Hello?
glitches.
Vous me recevez?
Yes, we did. Thank you so much for your input. I could try that in French, but it might not be great.
J'ai pas de retour.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us.
Allô, vous m'avez reçu?
Can he hear us?
Yes.
Envoie-lui un petit message.
Ok.
Could you hear us?
Oui, je vous entends maintenant. Oui.
Thank you so much, Mr. Traoré. Thank you for joining us. I do apologize. My French is not as great spoken. I do understand, but I wouldn't like to put anyone through the misery of that accent. So thank you
Merci beaucoup.
thank you very much for joining us and for giving your testimony. It's been very much appreciated. Thank you.
Very much. I have sent this document of my speech by email today. You can maybe share it with other participants.
Absolutely. We will disseminate it to those who unfortunately are not so great in French like I am. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Merci, Mr. Traoré. And we will hopefully see you around and speak to you soon. Thank you so much.
See you.
Wonderful. So that was Mr. Traoré. Very good words from what I picked up. I do apologize those if we didn't have the correct translation into English, but the signal, unfortunately, our interpreters weren't able to get what was being said by Mr. Traoré. But on that note, I'd love, actually, you're here. Thank you. Thank you. Like by magic, you appeared. So thank you for joining us, Miss Alice Tukwa from PIPSO. Also would like to just briefly just say who Miss Alice is, who, for those who don't know her. Miss Alice Tukwa, is that correct? The pronunciation? Is it close? Let's give, what is the right pronunciation?
It's pronounced Tunga.
Tunga. Okay, here we go. Is Program Officer at the Pacific Islands Private Sector Organization, PIPSO. She has been much involved in a successful cluster development project in collaboration with BizClim, and this one I have actually had the opportunity and was, I'd say, blessed to know more about it when I was in Fiji. So thank you so much for joining us. I do know it's far away, and thank you for being with us. And if we could hear from you some of your words, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Ambassador Roy, Chair to the ACP Committee, Your Excellencies and distinguished delegates, and Mr. Mohammed Sharif of BizClim. Thank you for the opportunity to be here to present some of the sharings from PIPSO insofar as I think two of the key projects that we undertook with BizClim over the last few years. On behalf of my board chair, Mr. Klaus Tanz of Samoa, and my CEO, who also sends her apologies, could not be here today, would like to sincerely express our thanks and gratitude to BizClim, particularly for the project that we undertook last year. It was the pilot cluster development project, the first kind in the Pacific that took place, covering 4 countries, which was Vanuatu, Tonga, Samoa, and Papua New Guinea. It was a very interesting time for PIPSO in that it was some follow-through from work which had previously been undertaken with BizClim. So it was very fortunate for PIPSO to see some momentum. It took place a couple of years later, but to see some momentum take place, for work that had preceded a couple of years earlier. And this was with regards to the business value chain study, which was commissioned by PIPSO, funded by BizClim, and which the ambassador had alluded to earlier. So from those findings in that business value chain recommendations, there was one that was specific to cluster development, which PIPSO and BizClim worked through to develop this proposal. And it was a very interesting time for PIPSO, as well as the 4 countries that were involved, because essentially it was about gathering support and trying to get businesses to work a lot more closer together. And I guess it had already been taking place, informally within those 4 economies, business collaborating. But I think the cluster development concept was one that sort of formalized the relationships, and it really was a partnership between government, academia, and private sector, but really allowing room for private sector to take the lead in these 4 areas. And I think for the Pacific Island countries particularly, it was a new way of doing things, because there was always that heavy reliance for governments perhaps to take a bit more of the lead, but this time it was sort of turning the role around to private sector to take a bit more of the lead in this regard. So for that, we'd like to thank BizClim. The teams that participated, we were very fortunate to work with a good group of people from 5 companies that managed the program, and particularly the one that was with PIPSO. Whilst there were 4 separate teams working in the countries, there was a coordination team that was with PIPSO, and that was a very exciting time for us, because we had a world-renowned cluster expert which was working with us, and through the work of the project, this has really allowed PIPSO to develop a full-time cluster development program. So whilst the project with BizClim has officially ended, it concluded last year in August, September, the PIPSO actually has taken on a full-time cluster development program. So I think we should be thankful that there is continuity to this. And just earlier this year, we decided to take some work to Kiribati, which is one of the other countries that we serve, and we've already started discussions with them and the chamber on taking on cluster development. So we were there in April to do this work. There were challenges, but I won't take this opportunity to go into them. But like all projects, there were challenges. But I'd like to thank Mr. Mohammed for his leadership, and with our CEO, being able to get through those challenges and being able to sort of address them as we came across them. I think to conclude, it'd be interesting, as had been alluded to and mentioned by the ambassadors, where to from here. For PIPSO particularly, we know that private sector development is a core work area or sector that's been advocated for and lobbied for in various agencies and facilities, and particularly with the amount of money that's being channeled through the ACP to private sector development. We'd be particularly keen to hear about who will take on this role now that CDE is gone and BizClim is wrapping up. For PIPSO, who do we touch base with? We're very fortunate to have links and relationships with other ACP facilities, such as CTA and COLE-ACP, for example. But just to try and see where there are other opportunities and potential for us to be able to leverage from these agencies and see how we can further progress and strengthen the private sector, particularly in the Pacific region. So with those words, I'd like to thank again BizClim for the opportunity to be here and to share with you. I'm most welcome to take any questions if anyone wishes to ask me anything particularly, and to thank you for being with us throughout the journey in developing private sector, particularly the last few years. Thank you.
Thanks, Alice Tukwa. Right? Did I get that one right now? Thank you so much. Thank you. Very relevant points there that you raised as well. And especially I like the question that you ask, where from? from here, where to? So thank you for letting us know what PIPSO thinks and also what you think. That's great. Thank you. We would be joined by, but I believe it's not time yet. We will also hear from Mr. Escipion Oliveira, Deputy Director of SEDA in Santo Domingo, but he's obviously a bit delayed and we are 6 hours forward, I believe, compared to Santo Domingo. So on that note, we shall start with Mr. Mohamed Sharif from BizClim, who obviously has some very wise words to tell us on success stories, lessons learned. So I'd like you to join us. Thank you.
First of all, thank you all. Thank you very much for coming despite this very difficult time. It's the 29th of July. Many have apologized, but at the same time I have learned a lot from those who couldn't come, and so I will definitely take their feedback into account. Unfortunately, I cannot give you that feedback right now, but they should be reassured that their words will not be lost. And also we will have a Q&A session later on, and I will definitely listen very carefully to what you all be saying and asking. But before that, what I would like to do is to maybe tell you few things that are not necessarily known by most people. And the first one is, what is the objective of BizClim? And so I have copied there on the screen our objective as defined by the terms of reference and the design of the BizClim facility. And you will see that the enabling environment is really the key thing that we are trying to achieve. That's our specific objective. And as I said this morning during our steering committee, we have taken a broad definition of the business environment without being too broad, because the business environment includes infrastructure, it includes corruption, it includes good governance at least, it includes many other things, even social things, political things. It's really too broad. And some agencies rightly have confined their interventions into specific areas, such as regulations. Well, we have taken a more general approach and a broader definition. First of all, we didn't have all the evidence at that time, but we do have it now from studies. Actually, if you take just small reforms, it will not pay off, you will not succeed, you will not change things. Countries have not developed really by doing small reforms. So if you take a strict definition or a limited definition of the business environment, and in addition to that you take just one element, for example, facilitating, improving the time to establish a company registration, that's fine by itself, but honestly it doesn't bring you too far. So from the beginning we have taken the risk to say, look, we are not going to do what the World Bank and IFC are doing, and they are doing it very, very well. We will be intervening in the business environment as broad as possible without, of course, doing things that we cannot, such as structural adjustment and those kind of things. So that explains why you will find us actually in many areas, and you will see from my presentation. But there is always a common thing, and that is the business environment. We have also realized during all our work that actually the business environment is important, but there other important things as well, and that is creating the right ecosystem for entrepreneurs, for startups, for social entrepreneurs, for entrepreneurs in the renewable energy sector, etc. You have to create the right ecosystem. And this is basically the gap that the ambassador was talking about, and actually BizClim has tried to fill as well. It's not simply because CDE is not there, simply because we need, as a facility working on the business environment, we need also to work on ecosystems and try to link the two together. And now there is evidence, the literature is there, the recent one, but it is there to say that ecosystems are very important. The business environment influences ecosystems, but ecosystems influence the business environment itself. And so what we are trying to facilitate that influence is through public-private dialogue, making sure that the business sector can voice its concerns, make recommendations, work with governments and policymakers, etc. So for us, it is the fact that CDE is not there. Actually, it has really helped us in a way, and I'm sad for the CDE, but it helps us ourselves to think about what BizClim should be doing, even in the presence of CDE. Of course, then we should work more closely. But the fact that you cannot dissociate today the business environment from creating ecosystems, the right ones, is something that is well established. And I think very few agencies in the world have already understood this. This is a new thing, and we will hear more about it. We have been privileged in the EU-Africa Business Forum to bring social entrepreneurs, to bring startup companies, to bring business angels, venture capitalists, etc., to the table, to bring also the bigger ones, like the EIB has organized a round table in the EU-Africa Business Forum. EDFIS have organized another round table. So it has been an eye-opener in the sense that you have these big ones, but you have also the smaller ones who are crying for something different. They say, that's fine to have all these DFIs, etc., but we need to really create the right ecosystems. And these ecosystems work in the business environment. So I'm sorry that I have spent a little bit time on this, just to show that basically we are driven by, let's call it a philosophy. Yes, we are demand-driven, I accept that. And we respect that. But also there is some thought behind it. And you will see that there is coherence and consistency in the work that we have done over the last 5 years. So that is the definition of the business climate, all influences and pressures exerted by external factors on business. Let's remind that some people have taken, some people such as, and I mentioned, have taken a more restricted or limited definition, regulatory, but there are other reforms as well. Some have looked for quick wins. It has become popular. We haven't. We thought that we were after transformational change, and I think the commissioner has underscored this, that you cannot look for immediate impact. And what we have done together, those are things that need time to bear fruit, and so that we can measure their impact. And the other thing is the extent of the reforms, and I alluded to this by saying we are not looking for single elements. We are looking as much as possible for comprehensive interventions, comprehensive reforms. So this translates, of course, into the mix of products that we offer to our partners. And we have been somehow lucky, I think, by, from the beginning, insisting on a methodology that really gives the same importance for expertise as for the organization of events, visibility and communication. And in this way, we can address even large issues because we are not the experts. The experts are there in the room. The experts are people we work with on the grounds. And we facilitate the dialogue. We facilitate communications. And the good thing we do is take notes. Whenever we organize a forum, we have summary of proceedings. Well, first of all, it starts with a pre-event brochure, concept note, pre-event brochure, post-event brochure, all those schemes. It's amazing how much we produce at the occasion of every project. But that means that those who are giving the ideas are the people we are working with, not the experts. And we struggle with experts who do not understand what our beneficiary and our partners are saying and are crying for. So, welcome. So I think this is important for us to understand that the methodology is actually consistent with the things that we are delivering as services to our partners. Then we have the question of whether we work upstream or downstream. Actually, we should be working really just upstream and doing some studies, investment opportunities, etc. But we will see from the examples I will give that we have gone all the way to almost concrete implementation without doing the implementation ourselves. And this is also thanks to the collaboration with private sector companies, with private sector organizations, governments, RECs, etc. The duration has always been a challenge and a problem, and we are actually a short, how I say, in terms of time, we are short time implementation facility. We have a short lifetime, so we are bound to initiate things that can be implemented in a couple of months, basically. Let's say half a year, maybe a year at the maximum. And really the good thing is that, and this is an evaluator who has pointed out this to me, he said, that's really good, in fact, because you don't do the work yourself. You can come back later and verify with the partner whether there has been continuity, that has been follow-up, etc. So this enhances the ownership of our partners. So I'm not pleading for short-term facilities. On the contrary, I think the more time we have as BizClaim, the better it is. But somehow this has been integrated in the work we do, in the methodology, and in fact, we have implemented, and this will, I hope, will be clear from the rest of my presentation, we have implemented far-reaching reforms and projects within a very limited time frame and also with very limited resources. So I mean, we read definitely the evaluations and monitoring reports. We don't necessarily agree with everything evaluators say. We try, however, to think about how to respond if we disagree and how to implement if we agree. And the evaluation of BizClaim 2 said very clearly BizClaim should not do more of the same. And the specificity of BizClaim is that it takes the risk to innovate or encourage partners to innovate and work with partners to innovate, and should not fall into the trap of doing the same thing, even if we do it well. And I think this is a good recommendation that some of the projects that have already been presented today illustrate. The other things I mentioned is that we are entering more and more in ecosystems, and we do a lot to disseminate the results, to publish reports, and I think we have already there downstairs a number of reports that we have written, and whenever we feel that we have a project that needs to be, or it's good to disseminate, it's good to share the findings of that project, we do it at the PMU itself. So the budget of BizClim is 10 million euros every 2 years and a half. So that makes for BizClim 2 and BizClim 2 Plus 20 million euros. And I would like really those who are here today, just think about it. If somebody comes and tells you, look, we want a project that would help ECOWAS, help COMESA, help PIPSO in the Pacific, do exactly the few projects that have been already mentioned. Defining a program for the Lagos-Abidjan corridor, helping with the establishment of the common investment market in ECOWAS, with all what is included, including the setting up, the feasibility for setting up an investment guarantee facility, a 1 billion facility. Defining with COMESA their support to countries to improve, member countries to improve their business climate. Promoting double taxation agreements between countries. How much would you put as a donor for this? Look around and look what other donors are doing. You are already immediately above the 20 million, above the 30 million euros, just for these couple of projects. And I really challenge anyone to come and discuss with me on the basis of specific projects. Now, we have done 150 interventions on basis of contracts. In terms of big projects, and if you consider that the PIPSO project is just one, then we are already almost at 90 projects like those, all in all, between BizClim 1 and BizClim 2. We have organized 92 conferences, workshops, what we call events, going from the biggest one, the EU-Africa Business Forum, 1,180 people, to the smallest one, maybe 30, 50 people. And you have a lot in between, 200, 300 people attending, with all what is included, capacity building, training, and all that kind of stuff. So 92 conferences like this. If you just take even on average, and I'm really taking the low side, 100 people in each event, you have already 9,200 participants who have benefited directly from events organized by BizClim. I think this is what we haven't really, maybe communicated well, because this is the closing workshop, and we are trying now to speak about the big things, forgetting the smaller, but even the smaller things are really important. But this is where we are, with a lot of people who have participated. And so it's not also strange or unusual that we have a network of people that was mentioned this morning. Just for Africa, we have 5,500 people that almost we know, I wouldn't say personally, but these are the people we have worked with, have attended our events. We haven't gone and looked for email addresses on the internet. These are the people we have worked with, 5,400. So whenever we do anything with Africa, this is the database we use to communicate with our African partners. And we use this network in many ways. We use them to attend the EU-Africa Business Forum, but when we implement a project, we use them to come and comment, contribute to the project. So that is a lively, actually, network of people that we have, and it's good to have that, and it's good to keep it, and keep it alive, really. So this is in terms of big figures. There is one figure that I would like to give as well, is the number of company, because I know that there are contractors here with us. We have worked with, I think it's about 90 contractors all in all. They have used, and we have worked with the key experts, 160 experts. And I gave the figures this morning to illustrate that despite the difficulties of working with ACP companies, with working with ACP experts, 42% of our experts are of ACP origin. So I think that gives already an idea that we are working more and more with ACP experts, and 12% of the companies are of ACP origin. That needs to be improved definitely, and this was mentioned by the ambassador. But more and more we have very qualified and skilled people in ACP countries. So let me present our interventions or operations, and I will present them in a way that is, I think, convenient for me, and I hope it's convenient for you as well. It's a little bit different from our budgetary allocations. So we have a different clustering of activities, and the first cluster is what we call the global policies. Regional business climate improvement programs. We have helped UMOA, the Francophone West African countries, to develop the PRACA, which is their regional investment improvement program. We have helped the Central African states to develop also a similar program for Central Africa. And I already mentioned COMESA. We have helped COMESA to support individual member states in improving their business climate and to monitor the implementation of those programs. In the Pacific, unfortunately, we haven't worked on an overall business climate improvement project, but I think the cluster project itself is not only a significant project, but is a significant tool to define improvement programs, etc., because the same operators, business people, will have a say. They are together, they can advocate, and they can define programs to improve their own business climate as well. We have worked on specific projects, specific themes. One that I would like to put forward is the DTA program with COMESA. And I would like to say a few words about the importance of this and to say that there is a strategy behind it. If you want to help Africa get more investments, you need, like you have financial centers, you need a financial center through which investors can channel their investments into African countries. If you don't have DTAs between that financial center, call it Mauritius or call it South Africa, if South Africa or Mauritius do not have DTAs with the rest of Africa, it will be difficult, it will continue to be difficult for serious investors to invest in Burkina Faso, Niger, Senegal, Mozambique, etc., because there will be double taxation, there will be always difficulties in terms of investing directly into a government. However, if you structure your investments going through hubs such as Mauritius, then it becomes much easier. Plus you have then skills, you have capacities to help investors invest in all Africa. So what has been done here is not just for one country. It's not even just for COMESA. It has been done for whole Africa, promoting DTAs between African countries first and between African countries and other countries, European and non-European countries. We have helped also the Caribbean to work on customs regulations and to harmonize their legislation and regulations. This is a project with CARICOM, And I believe we have now a draft bill that should be soon, I hope, adopted. But it has been a painstaking exercise with 2 regional meetings with experts really on the subject to define and draft. It's really a drafting exercise, drafting the regulations, harmonized regulations. And all this, BizClim always brings something. Like here, the first thing we brought is private sector angle into this. And it was amazing that the private sector was completely absent in the preparation of these regulations. And many provisions that are actually of a lot of interest to private sector were absent in the beginning. And luckily we had another intervention in Liberia where we asked renowned experts in customs regulations, and they have developed kind of guidelines for doing the right thing today in today's world. And we use those findings to convince our friends from the Caribbean to integrate those things that were missing. And I think this is also the advantage of one of the advantages of an all ACP program. We can bring something, even in a small country like Liberia, and bring to the whole of Caribbean and saying, this is what we have learned doing things. We have worked a lot, as you know, on public-private dialogue, and of course the most known forum we have supported is the EU-Africa Business Forum. Ambassador has already mentioned the business fora that we have supported in the Pacific, 2 of them. We also support regional fora. We have organized 3, actually, EU-Caribbean business fora. The latest one took place just a couple of months ago in Montego Bay, but the previous one was in London at the occasion of the Olympic Games, really bringing the Caribbean to the heart of Europe. And public-private dialogue doesn't really stop there. If you look at these projects, you will find that there is a lot more than just dialogue. For example, the forum that took place in London was preceded by 2 study tours, each of 50 people from the Caribbean, who have met with partners in Europe, in 3 countries of Europe, to see how certain things can be done on the ground, what prevents exporters from the Caribbean to export their goods to Europe, talking directly to private sector organizations and private sector partners in Europe. And so on the basis of these study tours, the EU-Caribbean Business Forum itself was then designed and organized in London. If you look at the 3rd Caribbean Business Forum, we have worked a lot with investors who are actually discovering what the Caribbean can offer. And not only European, but even African people who we brought to the Caribbean have discovered what they can do with the Caribbean. And this is, again, another message that it is possible to work together, Caribbean, Pacific, and Africa. And there are business opportunities. Actually, there are more business opportunities than we think. And after all, the same investors, they are interested, for example, in cocoa. We have discovered that the same people who are investing now or interested to invest in the Caribbean, because it's a special flavor, exclusive flavor cocoa, etc., but they are interested in the Pacific as well. And they are interested, actually, some of them, not all, because Africa has less of that exclusive flavor cocoa, but some of them are interested in. So we meet investors in the Caribbean. Actually, we mobilized them before going there, but we met physically in the Caribbean. But those same people will be part of the EU-Africa Business Forum, will be part of the Pacific Business Forum. And again, this is another advantage, a third one, of a facility like BizClim trying to bridge the continents and do some cross-fertilization. We work also at the national level. I think there is a video that was shown this morning on what we have done in Ethiopia. We have supported the EU Business Forum in Ethiopia. 300 European companies based in Ethiopia have benefited from this. And the forum itself, their organization, has benefited a lot from this through studies, but also through roundtables, 2 conferences, and a last concluding conference that were organized in Addis Ababa. Now, as I said this morning, these European investors are talking to the government, they are listened to, and there is a constructive dialogue between not only then the European private sector, but the Ethiopian private sector and the regional private sector is facing exactly the same problems, except that we started from people who could mobilize BizClim. Those are the European companies. But basically, we resolve the same issues faced by everybody. And I believe this is an example of what can be done in other countries, and there is a demand already formulated by other countries to do the same. Now, in terms of investment promotion and facilitation, and this is another example of what BizClim is doing, going beyond just the strict definition of business climate. We are really doing capacity building of investment promotion agencies. And we have done it in a way that is exemplary, in the sense that we have a well-thought methodology. We haven't developed it. It's the World Bank methodology, the Global Investment Promotion Benchmarking Index. We've sent, or 2 of my colleagues went to South Africa to a workshop to listen to the World Bank and get trained. We worked with Commissariat, the Regional Investment Agency, to develop this program, and it has become really a flagship of COMESA today. And the countries who have benefited from this project are very thankful and grateful that they have received this assistance. But these are just These are just 4 countries. Could you imagine what is needed for all African countries, Pacific and Caribbean? And this is what we talked about this morning during the steering committee, is this idea of spin-off. Could we find a way for BizClim, on the basis of some success stories, to really create and then continue working together with some spin-offs? This could be one of them. You could have just one project that does only this for all investment promotion agencies. And what they get then, they get not only training, capacity building, but they get the same tools, basically. An investor tracking system, I'm sorry, today, if we have a good one, everybody would be willing to use it. It's very useful to have an investor tracking system. We have developed this. In addition, it's based on open source, so it doesn't cost money, except trading. And we have developed the websites. It's almost easy to develop a website. All this has been developed with one project of 200,000 euro. The websites, the ITS, the capacity building, and even the closing workshop, etc., etc. So I think this is one spin-off possible. We have worked on other ideas of supporting private investment, investment promotion agencies and other bodies such as one-stop shops. The example I'm giving here is the virtual one-stop shop that was set up in the Seychelles, and I think it has somehow contributed to ranking Seychelles as the best country in Africa in terms of e-government. In the renewable energy sector, you have a list of interventions that we have done. The matching platforms, we have developed a matching platform for Africa. It's called GenHub. It was developed with NEPAD. The interesting thing here is that we have worked with about 20 private sector companies who are interested in investing or expanding their operations in the renewable energy sector. And we have tried a concept. So this is rather a proof of concept by saying with a little bit of assistance, there are project developers, project owners who could access funding. So this was the challenge, and therefore we established a platform that we hope will be built upon and will continue. But the idea was to prove a concept, but not necessarily to set up a platform. So that's an externality, rather, of the thing. But we are now establishing, we have an investor, we have donors who are interested in establishing a matching platform for the Caribbean. At least IDB has pledged money. We have a private investor who is talking to different partners to establish this platform, and we hope that it will be established by early 2016. We have organized 2 symposia, one in South Africa and another one in Dakar on bioenergy, in the same spirit, by saying that with really a little bit of assistance, there are project developers who are looking for funding, but they don't know how. And in the bioenergy sector, we have identified immediately, just for this symposium in South Africa, 20 such promoters. And in West Africa, we had identified 18 project promoters. The good thing is that after the meeting, after the symposium in Dakar, our own team leader there decided to establish a company in Dakar and to use the waste of the slaughterhouse to produce electricity and sell it back to the slaughterhouse. And it's working. It's working fine. He's looking now for funding from FMO to use 100% of the waste rather than wasting it in the sea. And this is a direct impact, an unwanted impact, but it is direct impact and a visible one of a small symposium on bioenergy in Dakar. We have worked with SPC in the Pacific to develop a model to promote the use of solar lanterns in rural areas in 4 countries. Unfortunately, there was a problem between the contractor and CBC, and we had to shorten the period of implementation or stop the contract if you want to. But we have there a good model that has been developed by private sector people who are in the sector, who are working with already distributors of solar panels in the Pacific. And we believe that from the technical and financial point of view, and also from the sociological point of view, because they have been working and they are still working with small communities in rural areas and developing micro enterprises, especially with women, we have there a story to tell. We have there a model that can be replicated and used in the Pacific and replicated in other areas. We have worked with ICRE, which is the Renewable Energy and Efficiency Energy Center of ECOWAS on NAMUS. NAMUS basically it's a nationally appropriate, whatever, I don't know what it was. It's like the CDM market, but they realized that CDM was not really working well for Africa. Actually, it hasn't been worked well for the Pacific. It hasn't worked well for the Caribbean. And they thought that by promoting measures like improving the business climate in the renewable energy, they could attract funding. And this was promised by the donors, promised by the Sustainable Energy for All, by the United Nations. And actually nothing has come out of this. But the main recommendation of the work that has been done in ECOWAS was to say, don't wait till the UN set up a NAMA funding program. Start immediately by improving the business climate and take measures in your own countries and set up your own funds to do this. And this was followed by ICRE, by ECOWAS, and they established a fund, and the fund has been operating now for almost 3 years and a half. So this is also a direct consequence of a small project, but the conclusion was very important, very strategic for ECOWAS. In terms of PPP, I think you have probably heard about PPP models. Some are well known. COMESA wanted to develop its own model for its member states, and we have helped COMESA to develop a PPP model that I hope is now used by all member states as a reference, as a model. Of course, the real PPP legislation, etc., might be different, but this is the starting point. This is the model that COMESA countries are using. It has been approved by the heads of state as the COMESA model. In the Eastern Caribbean with EIB, we have worked also on improving the PPP framework in the Eastern Caribbean. It was the first time that such an exercise was done at the regional level. We learned a lot from it. It doesn't mean that recommendations have been implemented. There have been many discussions on whether there should be a regional PPP unit or just to rely on country units, etc. But the main thing that I retain is that this project has helped the EIB to understand the framework, the PPP framework, and what needs to be done in the Caribbean. It has helped the private sector and member states also to know what should be done, and it's up to them, taking all consideration, political and others, to decide what to do. But the project, I think, was quite useful from that perspective. We have helped Swaziland as a pilot country to develop then not only a PPP policy, but also PPP guidelines, PPP even working tools. It is really the country where we have done the most in terms of PPP from a practical point of view. It's a very difficult country, and if it works in Swaziland, it should work really in every country, I think. And we have no examples where projects are being considered for PPPs, and actually there are PPPs who have been announced and looked for in Swaziland. I haven't checked whether the PPPs have been, like these projects, have been really implemented, but they have been announced, they have been in the media, investors have been approached, and I think there is definitely a change of mind in Swaziland in favor of PPPs. We have worked also with the Regional Chamber of Commerce of East Africa, as well as with the Northern Corridor Authority, to basically transform what is now a transport corridor into an economic development area. And the idea is to use PPPs to encourage SMEs to invest and do business along the corridor. Again, this is a strategic document. It's a policy document with far-reaching recommendations. One of them that we discussed this morning is how to achieve more local content and how the different countries of East Africa can work together to promote local content in PPPs, even with the bigger guys like the oil companies, etc., etc. So I think this is a strategic document, and we have decided on the basis of all the technical documents to publish a document on the Northern Corridor, a strategic one, taking out all the details and keeping the main recommendations and the key messages coming out of this. We have also worked on the sovereign wealth funds and pension funds. This was a quite successful project done in collaboration with Africa Investor. Not only we brought all African sovereign wealth funds and most of the pension funds together for the first time. By itself, it's an achievement. They discussed what can be done and how pension funds and sovereign wealth funds can be used to finance infrastructure, but also to finance SMEs. They have decided themselves, and hope this will be done, to establish an association of African sovereign wealth funds and pension funds. And the report, we improved the report, we published a new report with Africa Investor. The report was presented in the New York Exchange, presented to a number of heads of states, and it's really termed now as a leadership thought report on what sovereign wealth funds and pension funds can do in Africa to promote investments in infrastructure and SMEs. In terms of finance, of course there are things that we cannot disclose as such because they are confidential in nature. One of them is the Eastern Caribbean project working with banks in the Caribbean. The banks in the Caribbean were at one point in time when this project was implemented on the verge, some of them were on the verge of bankruptcy. We were approached and we accepted, of course when we say we, it means the ACB Secretary, the Commission, through BizClaim, we have accepted to work with the local banks and especially facilitating the dialogue, bringing the CEOs of all banks together and discuss how to salvage the banking system in the Eastern Caribbean. Of course, the official title and the official theme was collaboration between banks, and it was indeed a collaboration between banks. But really the thriving idea there was to help the banks work together, help each other, and try to salvage banks. What we have achieved, and the reports are published, is more of the externalities, like what they can do in terms of ICT to cut costs, to work together and cut costs. What can they do to work together on mobile banking, to further expand the mobile banking in the sector. I think in terms of BizClaim, we have achieved a lot just according to our terms of reference, or the terms of reference of the project. For them, it was a great opportunity, and I hope they can testify if requested, at a crucial time to think about the future of the banking system in the Eastern Caribbean. Now, what we have done also is to move ahead where we thought that there is really a gap, and a gap that has not been addressed even by the multilaterals, African Development Bank, etc. One of them is the setting up of a platform that just gives the information to those who are looking for funding. Where can they get the funding? Where is it? And so we established a platform with Commissariat, the Regional Investment Agency. The platform is up and running. There are more than 500 investment funds, etc., who are listed there. And the idea is in the next stage, if there is another BizClaim or another donor who is willing to support this platform, is to use the same platform not only for matching, not only for information about availability of funding, but to do more like matching and helping project promoters finding the right investor or the right banker, etc. So really use the platform for something more hand-holding, etc. That's AFPA. We have done some work on the capital, venture capital in Dominica, and we are looking now for people who are interested in setting up venture capital funds. When we say we, it's the people who have been associated with this, and they have expressed an interest, and they are doing it. They are doing it as private investment. For this one, We have a private investor who is interested, and we have shared the proposal with the EIB and with the Inter-American Development Bank, and we are hopefully waiting. Well, we are waiting for feedback from them on this. The good thing, whether this fund will be established or not, is that the good thing is that we have a roadmap for creating a favorable ecosystem for venture capital in Dominica. And the government agrees and considers this as its roadmap for creating this ecosystem. So whether the fund will be established or not, but the conditions for establishing a fund will be created by the government whenever it is its responsibility to do something to create this ecosystem. And of course, you all know what we have done with the ACP Secretariat in the SME finance sector. This is a 2-year project reflecting on SME finance, also the investment facility that is managed by the EIB. But actually, and I would like really to emphasize this, this is the first time that the focus was on what was called the missing middle. And the power of thinking is so great that sometimes you don't need funding. You need just to bring the attention on something. And the attention was brought on the missing middle. We have ourselves published a report on SME finance and the missing middle. 2 years later, the word missing middle can be found in a communication by the European Commission on private sector development. Once in the communication, which is already a great deal of advance, I think, but not enough, because we have put really the whole focus, and the ACP strategy on private sector development, if you read it, you will find the missing middle almost everywhere. The focus is on that. But what I'm saying here is that what we are doing is cannot be measured just by concrete actions like setting up a fund. It's also just by bringing an idea, put it on the table, creating a consensus, put the emphasis on it, and see what happens. Because there are other actors who do the work, not BizClim. In terms of creating ecosystems, I think the notion of ecosystem really is very badly known by most people. And I must admit, I have to read a lot, to understand what is the notion, what is this ecosystem. I mean, I know the word from a long time ago, even 10 years ago, but I wasn't really aware of the recent developments in this area by academics, by etc. Now I think there is a lot more thinking about these ecosystems. And I was sensitized myself by the social entrepreneurs, the business angels, etc., who came to the EU-Africa Business Forum and insisted on improving the ecosystems next to improving the business climate. So you see, the things are really related, but we are not using this. It's not exactly the same thing. Actually, it's very different. The ecosystems work within business environment, but they are not. They are business environments somehow to the companies that are the elements that are part of the network, part of the ecosystem. But there are synergies between the business environments and the ecosystems. And this is an area where I think, whether it is BizClim, CDE, or anybody else, we should work more together and work more together in terms of addressing business environment issues and ecosystem issues at the same time. The yachting industry, I will not spend a lot of time because I think I have already talked too much. But the yachting industry is our next probably success story in the Caribbean. Judging from the reports that have been produced, all countries now have roadmaps, all countries have investment plans. There is a common policy to develop the yachting and the mega yachting industry in Eastern Caribbean. There is a lot of interest from the government of the region, and we think this is a very recent, actually, project. It was just finished in the end of April. So we will hear more and more, I think, about this yachting industry project. And definitely the last one is the e-schools, and I'm really sad somehow that we couldn't work with SOS Global, the vice president is here, to develop e-schools in the whole of Africa, starting by a couple of countries. One of them, the first one, was Liberia. But because of, and SOS Global had teamed up with Media Teachers International to promote this new PPP model for e-schools and really implement them and show that it can work. But the Ebola broke, and unfortunately the project could not go ahead, but I'm hopeful that SOS Global will continue working on this for the benefit of Africa. So this is it in a nutshell, and thank you very much for your attention, and I hope I haven't been too long.
Thank you, Mehmed. I think your words were great, and I think it was very important that you clarified further what BizClim's work is, its role, and also its achievement. So thank you for that. And we should not forget the other part of the team that has also been very important to make sure that this has been implemented as well. So I would extend the invitation further to Patricia Gores, Communication Officer, and then we'll hear from the rest. Thank you.
Thank you, Julia. Thank you all for being here. I have a very short presentation, only 5-6 minutes, so you don't have time to sleep. So I would say, let me start by saying that communication and visibility is a fundamental component of our methodology. So we put communication at the core of our strategy, and together with the expertise and organization of events is one of our pillars. So the importance of communication lies in not only informing our beneficiaries and partners, but mainly in considering communication as an element that contributes to the success of a project. So having communication in our strategy means that we can work together, we can describe a project, shape it, and create the right conditions for its success. And this is a fundamental exercise for us. So communication can be divided in two main areas. It's the external communication and internal one. So I'm going to start by the external. And it means that for each BizClim project, there is a communication plan, and usually developed by a communication expert, a journalist, or a media person. And in this communication plan, we have the objectives, but also the most appropriate communication tools for each phase of the project. So the pre-phase, during, and the post-phase. So we have, as Mohammed said, we have e-scenes and post-event brochures and pre-event brochures and concept notes, etc. So there is a harmonized layout, press releases, interviews, and as an example, I would say that for the 5th EU-Africa Business Forum, Euronews was the media partner, and as with Isabel Kumar as principal anchor. And CNBC and CCTV interviewed several of our beneficiaries, and BizClim videos were disseminated through several channels. You can watch them in our YouTube. Yeah, Julie, you can watch those videos on our YouTube channel. Yeah. So in terms of publications, we published some important reports. Mohammed mentioned one of them, is the Sovereign Wealth Fund. And this is a report published and disseminated in collaboration with Africa Investor. And it was presented at the New York exchanges in front of several African presidents. You can find this report with others in our booth outside at the lobby. So as you can see, communication is a fundamental component of our strategy and also for the success of a project. And this is the reason why we execute a quality control on all those items, not only in terms of layout, but mainly in terms of content. So we have a close relationship with the beneficiary, but also with the contractor who is implementing the project. So for each publication, for example, there is an expert who is writing the content, but there is a communication expert who is rewriting the project and putting this content in a journalistic style. We have a proofreader, and then we have the layout, and finally the publication is disseminated through several channels, following the content of the report and also the advice given to us by the beneficiary. So we follow very closely all those steps, and it allows us to get deeper into the project, reflect on, shape it, and have an important feedback from our beneficiaries and partners. So this is the external communication, and in terms of internal communication, it is the visibility related to the promotion of the facility itself, to the promotion of BizClim. And it is the communication carried out for sharing information and best practices and lessons learned from BizClim. So this is a work tool that allows us to reflect on a precise theme and share it with everyone. So we have e-zines and we have newsletters and also 8-page brochures and 12-page brochures. And I must say that writing and publishing these quality reports at both levels, internal and external, adds to our small team a heavy workload. Yet we think it makes us better in understanding and supporting business environment reforms and improvements. So you can find all those publications, e-zines, videos from the internal communication and external one on our platform, new website. It is bizclim.org. And also in our, it might be useful for you, our platform name is bizclim.ning.com. And anyway, you can find most of those publications in our booth outside at the lobby. Yeah, thank you.
Patricia, you still had another 3 minutes there. I was timing. Thank you for that, Patricia. I'd like to ask Dominique Bourgault, is that correct? Program Manager, if I know Dominique also had a few words to say. Thank you.
Je suis désolée, je vais passer en français.
I'm going to speak in French. I'll be brief and practical. Mohamed mentioned a short period for implementation, so I'm just going to draw a picture of the situation. When BizClim started off in August 2010, we had 30 months to work for the PMU. It took us about 6 months to have the required documentation for the startup of the program. And under advice, we prepared a 2-phase, 11 months work programs. The first phase was supposed to be implemented through 2 program cycles of 11 months length each. They were extended first with a caveat of 19 months, and then it was further extended to cover a total of 22 months. That was for the first phase of the PMU, and then we received an extension, and with that extension we were authorized to present a program cycle for 18 months, which is the maximum length authorized for program cycles, unless there is a special authorization. So we managed to receive this extension for the for the implementation phase, which covered a total of 22 months. So as you can see, between the first and second phases, we had an operational system which was quite different, and which meant that the projects were also different, because when you have 11 months to work within, and when we knew what happened in previous time frames, and you have a request, you have to develop the request with the beneficiary, and then you have to get into consultations with the delegations, get their advice, get feedback for each of the projects with those involved, and then do the call for tenders. When you have an 11 months to do that, it is very difficult to try to have projects which are longer than 6 months. But when the operational phase is 18 months, well, then you can extend your horizons and look further. So in the two phases, there was a large difference between large difference in the projects and the length of the projects as well. So this takes me to another point which I wanted to mention, which is a more human aspect. We're looking more at the human side. We receive support and collaboration from the Commission and the Secretariat, the ACP Secretariat. This is something that was not always very active, and I just wanted to mention to what extent we waste a lot of time and energy in hesitating and getting frustrated, and that energy could be used elsewhere for something more positive. So I really wanted to thank the ACP Secretariat and the Commission for the way they handled our questions and the difficulties we encountered along the way. So I just wanted to mention those points. I think it is important to underscore this point for the effectiveness of the programs. Thank you.
Thanks, Dominique. And I think that's what's, at the end of the day, it's important. We're all human beings, and at the end of the day, we all have emotions, and no matter how much work we put into this and try and implement, there are situations that are frustrating, and clearly time was not BizClim's best friend at times. So thank you so much for your inputs, and I'm very happy you did speak. I know you were a little bit hesitant. So now I'd love to also ask Marco Pace, Program Administrator, to also share some words with us. Thank you.
Merci, Julie.
Thank you, Julie. I'd just like to very briefly and very informally say a few words just in order to express my pride at having been able to contribute actively with my colleagues here to contributing to the success of BizClim in the key sector of developing the private sector and the business climate. These are central points, essential points to any economic development strategy. And we want to aim towards reducing poverty. Now, I joined the BizClim program in May 2013. The program was already up and running by that stage. And I worked for other programs previously. And I must say that BizClim has showed a great deal of effectiveness. Some activities met urgent needs. Others were able to be planned out ahead because they were part of a predefined policy. We had a business fora that gave us some ideas. And then BizClim was also a pioneer in exploring and innovating. we had effective communication through various different channels, and we had communication for each project, and this increased the impact and visibility and allowed us to have greater results. And this often duplicated, let's say, successful actions in other regions. I'd just like to stress that BizClim was always at very high standards when it came to quality, both in terms of preparing the projects together with the beneficiary, the ACP Secretariat and the EU delegation and other partners, but also in the implementation phase. We had levels of quality at all the phases. We had expertise internally, and this allowed us to meet ambitious objectives. We've always tried to encourage participation of ACP companies in the tendering process, and we've tried always to focus on local knowledge. As has been said previously, if the results aren't initially measurable, it means it's difficult to measure them throughout the lifetime of the project. BizClim has, in fact, put the train on the tracks, and some of the results are only going to be measurable on a long-term basis. Most projects need a constant follow-up, and BizClim not being there, well, we had a limited mandate. Other people are going to have to take up the baton. This will only be effective if the baton is taken up immediately, and unfortunately that's not always the case. Now, without wanting to go too deep into details, BizClim, despite its rather short lifespan and a budget that is significant but at the same time limited, a small staff, but I think that despite all of this, BizClim was the perfect tool to meet its objectives. Many beneficiaries will actually tell you that. Now, I share the worries of the ambassador, because not having such a tool is regrettable, because I think that will be to the detriment of the actions that we have taken and the efforts that we have made. If we were to explain to the beneficiaries, well, this is going to be quite difficult, and it's going to negatively affect confidence and visibility. In our long-term mission, continuity is vital in order for us to obtain serious and sustainable results. It's up to all of us. And I would just like to invite all of the decision makers to have an open dialogue, and they need to bear in mind the main objectives of such a program. Just in order to wrap up, I would like to thank all of the colleagues that I worked with. I learned a lot from them. So I'd like to thank Mohamed, Dominique, Patricia, and Julia. They all showed a huge degree of competence and human qualities that allowed us to carry out this program. And well, I'm looking forward to working with them, even though that can be dangerous given my circumstances. But I'd like to thank the contractors. We had a very high level of a high working relationship with them. I'd like to thank everybody for their support. I'd like to thank the European Commission and the ACP Secretariat. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Marco.
So, thank you very much, Marco.
BizClim has certainly put the train on the tracks, and even though this is a small team, it has done possibly the near impossible. So thank you for that. Now we'd love to hear from Giulia Albertino, the office manager. Thank you.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here today, but even more, it has been a pleasure to join the BizClim team. I worked with them as a project officer and administrative assistant, and basically I supported Dominique and Marco in all the activities, from the preparation and the launch of tenders to the follow-up of project implementation and now the closure of the program. And as Julie said, we are all human being, and it has been a really interesting experience for me, and that's why I would like to thank all my colleagues for this experience. Thanks.
We would also love to hear from you, because I do know you have not been here from the beginning and you have been here for a short period of time, but it would also be very important to have your input. And I do not have your surname, so the surname I don't have, but please just say your name, Danai. Thank you.
Thank you, Julia. My name is Danai Musamira Pamwe. I myself am from the ACP region, and I joined the BizClim PMU almost 3 months ago. And perhaps I'd like to talk about another aspect besides the projects that have been promoted by the PMU, but I'd like to talk about the human aspect, because I feel a lot of times in projects being brought to the region, the youth are almost forgotten, and the youth are very important in contributing not only now but to future projects, and to have a voice on the same platform with leaders that I am among today, which I'm very honored. Engaging the youth gives us a sense of community and understanding of the different regions. As different as we are from Africa, Caribbean, and Pacific, we are united with the same goal. And I wish to see the same engagement that I had at BizClim be replicated in different projects in the ACP, and already it's the European counterparts have the same opportunities. The BizClim PMU has recognized the important role of young people in not only engaging them and making them understand the projects that are happening in our region, but also giving us a voice and also making us contributors in the decision-making process that happens on a daily basis. My speech will be very short, but I'd like to thank the PMU for welcoming me, and specifically Mohammed for really imparting his expertise and opening his heart and sharing his ideas with me. And I know that I will continue to promote and further deepen my knowledge and understanding of the projects that have been done by the PMU. Thank you.
Thanks, Danai. I know I'm not part of BizClim, but I've seen it for a few years, and if I may, and I'll hog the microphone now, I'll take a few, just two seconds just to say that I'd also like to extend that thank you, because I've had the opportunity to go to these 3 regions, and I agree completely with you when we talk about engaging the youth. And even though we are talking about projects and SMEs and how we're going to get engaged and how is this going to follow through, we need to understand that this has to be tangible on the ground. And I do believe that the work that BizClim has done, and I say this because when I went to, I will share a very short story with you. When I arrived in Fiji to cover a workshop, I was horrified to see there was only maybe, Elise, how many people were there? 30? Maybe less? And I went, oh my God, how am I going to do a video? And the truth is that it was, for me, one of the best videos. Everyone was engaged, everyone was happy, everyone wanted to talk about their experiences and how the clusters was amazing to them. And so a lot of the people there came to me and said, this has been tremendous, and BizClim is really aiding us. So I'd like to extend that compliment to you and to this wonderful team, and thank you so much for having me be part of it. And I thank you, and I wish you all the best. I do believe we have somebody that would share the same thoughts as I do. Is he on the Skype as well?
Yes, I am.
Wonderful. So let's now hear from somebody who I had the chance to meet in Guadeloupe, Mr. Iscipion Oliveira, Deputy Director of SEDA. Hello, Mr. Iscipion Oliveira, how are you?
I'm fine.
Are you well? Remember me?
What?
Do you remember me?
I'm ready, always ready.
You're ready. I know you're ready. Do you remember me, Julie? I interviewed you in in Guadalupe.
He doesn't see you.
Yes,
Tudo bem?
I recognize the face from the photograph.
Good. Good. Great to have you with us. Thank you so much.
Hello,
Can you hear us?
yes, I can hear you perfectly.
Wonderful. So Oliveira, wanted just to let you know we're in this room and we're gathered and we're here today for the closing workshop of BISCLIM, and we'd love to know your thoughts. So please just share them with us. Thank you.
Yes, well, first of all, I want to excuse myself with the ACP Secretariat and BISCLIM for not being able to do the trip. We have had a very, very busy end of year. An association of business people. Hence, I'm so sorry for that. Mamet, tú le dije que sos. I don't know if you want me to put a video because maybe it will be better for the sound. Anyway, we wanted to give testimonial that the BISCLIM for us has been a very important tool, that it has assisted the Caribbean as a whole and Caribbean exports specifically in exchanging best practices and liaising with our friends and brothers in Africa and the Pacific, and also, of course, with the European Union. We consider that this task has been carried out very, very well by the BISCLIM team, and we hope that it can continue, because we consider that the discussion, an overall ACP discussion on best practices, is of the utmost importance to reach our goal for sustainable development as mandated by Cotonou. For us, BISCLIM is a very, very important tool. It has come to fill a gap that is there. In the Caribbean, we know very well each other, and we see each other all the time, but we have little contact with our African brothers and our Pacific brothers. This role that BISCLIM has played in exchanging best practices has enhanced tremendously our work. It has also created links that are continuing with the Pacific. In fact, given that in the framework of the Alternative Energy meeting, we invited the Pacific, and then also the Pacific through BISCLIM, to our meeting in Jamaica. Caribbean Export was recently invited by CTA, which is another important organization, to attend an agribusiness forum in Fiji, and the feedback we received from Fiji was tremendous. In fact, our people knew little about the Pacific, and the Pacific knew little about the Caribbean, which was for us also very strange, given that we have been working together since Yaoundé, I believe. And so that role that BISCLIM has played, and we hope that it continues playing, is very important. Plus, we also believe that the professionalism of the BISCLIM team currently, Mr. Sharif and his team, is very good, and we appreciate working with them. And they have used, in our view, the best of the ACP. We have linked the best of the ACP with the best of Europe, so we cannot demand more than that.
Great. We have a little bit of delay there, but it's nothing to fear. I mean, there's a whole ocean apart and you're very far away. So thank you so much for I think I should look for you there. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for joining us, and it's been great to have your input, and thank you for this digital input. It's a shame that you could not join us, but we look forward to seeing you somewhere else. Thank you so much, Mr. Oliveira.
Yes, anything that you might need, we're at your disposal. We can cut the sound and stay to hear the rest. It would be interesting. For me, I was very sad not to come to the meeting.
Could you send some good weather from the Caribbean? Just now?
Fortunately, I am in a hotel room, and the good weather is far from me. But I will send some pictures.
Send some pictures. I'm sure it's gonna make us a little bit envious of where you are now. But But thank you so much for your input, and we look forward to hearing from you soon. Thank you.
Super. Cheers.
So that was Mr. Escipion Oliveira. Thank you. And we would now hear from Mr. Michel Netter, team leader of monitoring team. Just a few words. Is that okay?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. Let me just quickly run by who you are, so if people.
Juste deux mots. Alors à ce moment-là, pour reprendre un peu.
Just to take up, let us say, my colleagues were very diplomatic. Marco perhaps was a bit more involved. He was a bit more direct. But now what we need to do is the follow-up. BizClim was listed in red in the terms of reference. So BizClim was the promotion of the business environment and changing the business environment. Now all of this has been done. It was an extraordinary work, a brilliant work. But now it is up to all of us, whether it be DevCo, ACP, consultants, monitors. Now what we need to do is to transform all of this work, not just into the promotion of the improved business climate, but to put in place this improvement. So BizClim went beyond promotion. It went beyond promotion. We were moving towards implementation, but this action needs to continue. We need to work right up until the end. We need to really improve the climate, and we need to move closer to the, let's say, business ecosystem. If you look at National Geographic, you know that some large apes, for example, disappeared because their ecosystem disappeared, and it's the same in the business climate. If the ecosystem doesn't exist, we won't exist.
Je crois qu'on va s'arrêter là.
I think we can leave it at that.
Yes, we must reconsider. Thank you so much for your words, and I agree with you. The ecosystem can't just die. We must think about solutions. Thank you. We would like to open the floor maybe for a few questions and answers. So feel free to place your questions and just let us know who. I'm sure everyone here knows who you are. I might not, but feel free just to place questions. We're more than the team is more than open. Ambassador from Guinea-Bissau, hello.
Thank you. I wonder if, before expressing my view, it will be out of place to wish to hear an assessment by the ACP Secretariat, if any, so that we have a more broader picture. I'm not expecting any dissenting voice, but at least it will make the process more broader and more democratic. Thank you.
That is a valid point. Would anyone like to take that? Not putting you on the spot or anything. Would you like to join me up here?
Because I've been asked to take the floor, I think that, in fact, we are here as guests this afternoon because this was something that wasn't said. This meeting is a meeting organized by the consortium and the PMU in order to have an overview, let us say, of the activities that were carried out within the framework of the improvement of the business environment in the ACP countries. We had a steering committee this morning, which was quite official. We shared some points of view and positions. And asking the Secretariat to carry out evaluation is a very difficult task. It doesn't fall within the scope of our mandate, but there are some tasks we can do. And I think the work that is being carried out at the moment, well, the report is going to be published soon. We'll have it in the next few weeks. But if we want to say something from an informal point of view, well, first of all, what we need to do is to recognize the fact that the business environment, this problem was a major one. It was a fairly relevant problem. This is something that became obvious in the past, and this whole issue is part of the pillar, let's say, in order to improve the private sector in the ACP. And is a joint ACP-EU strategy as well to improve the private sector. So it's clear that both partners, both the EU and the ACP, fully agree that this program is going to be a part of the next programming period. We're working on this. Discussions took place this morning, and perhaps discussions this afternoon as well will give us some ideas as to how we can change this promotion into a reform in the ACP countries, because we do know that it's a weak link in a lot of countries when you look at the ease of doing business index published by the World Bank. So what we can observe is that we're very happy to have worked with this program. We've worked with partners, both in the Commission, the PMU. These are very committed partners that were committed to succeeding. It wasn't always easy. It wasn't always easy because sometimes you do have some difficulties given that you have a lot of stakeholders that don't actually know what the content of the economic partnership agreement is. So what we're trying to do is strike a balance between economic growth, the social dimension, and the environmental dimension. But I think the Cotonou Agreement contains all of these elements, and that's important. And then there's the possibility of allowing all the stakeholders, whether they be public, private, central, or decentralized, or regional, all of them can get on board. And I think in its implementation, I think this program has been very successful there. And we've insisted that the capacities of ACP countries be strengthened, because the Cotonou Agreement aims at not stretching out cooperation forever, but it's to strengthen capacity so countries can develop themselves. They don't want to be dealt with by others. So I think from that point of view, we're fully satisfied, and I think we need to continue this approach. And we've begun to think about this with our European partners. Now, the CD has been wrapped up, and the ambassador is here as well. I think in April, when we had the joint committee, there was a political question that was raised. We need to think about a transition. We need to ensure continuity between programs. This is something that depends on procedures. And maybe from a political point of view, we should ensure that there is continuity within the various different programs. And what BISCLIM has accomplished today should be strengthened tomorrow by the putting into place of a team, whether new or not, a team that would take up the baton and continue the work and ensure that there is value at a local level. I think we're satisfied with this program, and we should continue to work in this field and ensure that we have the structures in place in order to continue with this pillar and the microfinance pillar. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Imagna. Thank you for your input. I know you were possibly put on the spot there, but thank you so much for giving your input. It was very important. Thank you. Ambassador, would you now like to continue with your question, please.
Je vous remercie. J'ai eu l'occasion ce matin.
Thank you. This morning I had the opportunity to attend as an observer and representative of a country that's interested, but particularly as a representative of a country that's concerned by this program. I took part in the discussions. If I wanted to hear the Secretariat's point of view, it's particularly on the point of principle, but I must admit that I expected something else, something more than a personal opinion being expressed. But putting that aside, I would like to say that this morning I was happy to hear good news, because everyone agrees that this program, which is considered as an ACP program funded by the EU, everyone agrees that this program came up with very satisfactory and sizable results. And that's why I thought it would be a good thing as a member country of the ACP. Here we are around the table. There are many of us have turned up this afternoon, have been here since this morning. It's because we are stakeholders to some extent. We are the beneficiaries. We need to know how things have evolved, what have been the obstacles and the difficulties which have been encountered, how these difficulties were resolved, so that together we can move forward in the right direction, so that we're in a better position to obtain good results. It hasn't been a pretty picture all along the way. I would like to thank Mr. Sharif. He said it this morning and this afternoon, because he said that there were problems with a project in Kenya, but that's normal. The main thing is that we make sure that on the basis of what we've heard, but also on the basis of documents that we've received, because every time we receive a 6-month report, there is some reference to the project, to that project. So I think it is quite normal for us to have the right to take ownership of that project, which is aimed at helping the 3 regions boost a vital sector, vital for the development of our countries. Without a strong and dynamic private sector, there can be no growth, and without growth, true growth I'm talking about, because you have growth and growth. When you talk about some types of growth, it's growth to catch up, and then you have real development growth. When a country has been at war for 10 years, and then afterwards, at the end of the war, there starts to be a growth rate of 7 to 10%, that's just catching up growth and not development growth, and it is not competitive growth. It is not a competitive type of growth, so everything is relative. I just wanted to say that, yes, we are satisfied, and I, too, on behalf of my delegation, like to thank the whole team and thank Mr. Ahmed Sharif for his brilliant report this morning and this afternoon. And this allowed us to have a better picture of the program. And as our colleague, the chairman of the Committee of Ambassadors, the Ambassador of Vanuatu, this project was able to help certain countries and certain regions, and I think that it is quite normal for us, the ACP, to draw full benefit and learn from the lessons, see what worked, and see how we can draw all the benefits of this draw from all the benefits of this project. So the reason I took the floor was particularly to agree with all of the speakers that this was a relevant project, and to express the hope that in some way or another we can continue to benefit from this remarkable and fantastic support, where we are trying to create the ideal conditions so that we would have a strong and dynamic private sector, which would be one of the actors of growth and which could participate, as is its due, participate in better living conditions, because that's what development is all about. When I talk about development, I talk about human development in the way that's understood by the UNDP, because that's what real development is about: quality of life and living conditions. Populations should be able to live in countries where there is peace, democracy, where we have responsible people running the country, being fully aware of the fact that the public goods does not belong to them, and that they run the country in a transparent and democratic way. So thank you once again. Thank you, Madam. Thank you for the way that you've been conducting this afternoon's proceedings.
Obrigada, Ambassador. Thank you, Guinea-Bissau Ambassador. Thank you for those words, and I do believe it was important that at least the beneficiary spoke out about the work that BISCLIM has been doing in many of the countries that we're addressing today. Would anyone else like to extend a question? Yes, please. Thank you.
I'm not the ambassador of Malawi. So, good afternoon. My name is Christine Larquin. I'm Vice President in SES, who is a satellite operator. I just wanted to tell you that today I feel like an orphan. I've been actually working a lot in the EU-Africa Business Forum from 2006 on, so from the very beginning. And, BISCLIM was already there, doing a wonderful job, and I learned, working with them year after year, how important BISCLIM was to gather the public sector, ministers, governments, African Union, European Commission, ACP, Secretariat, and others, with the private sector, of which I'm part of. I have to tell you that it has been a long journey, and thanks to BISCLIM, we've understood a lot of the intricacies of the funding environment for private sector in Africa, mainly, also Caribbean, but mainly Africa. And without them, I think that we would not have been so mindful of what was possible and how we could actually move there. This being said, I hope that BISCLIM work, which actually offered this platform of discussion, will continue. Because there is not a lot of other possibilities, nor in the Commission, nor in SCP Secretariat, nowhere to have a real discussion with the private sector. And I think it's a missing point. There are a lot of industries who are investing in Africa, or willing to invest in Africa today, and we are one of them. We, for example, have, we're working a lot with Burkina Faso for the moment, just to let you know, with the governments, to connect the provinces, and we are about to, work on the future elections. You might know that the satellite connectivity has been supporting Burkina Faso already during the elections of December 2012, and we hope to be there for the next one, which will allow for transparency of data communication. So it shows that the public-private partnerships can exist in Africa in the best way. We also, thanks to that, created or helped created 2 internet service providers in Burkina. So it's showing that we are also investing in the development of activities. But I can say that without the networking that we did with BizClim during the EU-Africa Business Forum, this is probably would not exist today. So my wish for the future, and you talked about Liberia, and we're still in discussions with the Minister of Education, indeed, to establish the dreams we had from the start, which was to connect all the schools in Africa and allow primary schools, we're talking about primary schools, secondary schools, all the students to benefit from the leapfrog capacity that internet today and other technologies can bring to the schools. In a nutshell, my message for the future is that we would like BizClim to work, at least to continue. I don't know how it could be called. I don't care about the name. I care about the people who did it. And I just want to find them somewhere, you know, and we could continue to work with them and with the SCP Secretariat and the Commission. And it's a plead, really, for those big institutions to work intimately with the private sector, also in Africa and Caribbean and so on. They are willing to invest. They are willing to move forward. They are willing to support their people. And I think, you know, it would be a mistake to leave them alone. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. As private sector, I think that is a very important plea and testimony, and I'm sure the team is very chuffed with what you just said. Thank you so much. I would like to ask if anyone would want to raise a question. Yes, please. Sorry, I can't.
Thanks for giving me the chance. I thank all the presenter about what has been given us as information about BizClim business generally or activities. And I thank Mohammed Sharif for his comprehensive explanatory presentation, which has given us idea what is BizClim doing. But I have a question. The question is that they said that one of the areas which is BizClim working is legislation. But he said that in his presentation that the project lifetime is short. It starts from 3 months and maximum 1 year. But for me, legislation process is a process that sometimes need time and need follow-up. Maybe 1 year will not be enough. And I think one of the weak areas in most of our ACP countries, which is need to be improved for business, to improve business environment. So how can this work in their past, and what their view for the future?
Thank you, ma'am. Who would like to, Mohamed?
Allow me first to maybe give some comments or response to what His Excellency the Ambassador of Guinea-Bissau said and the remarks he made. It is true, and I don't know if this is really the platform for going into the details of difficulties encountered. There have been many, believe me. The good thing, but I'll say a few more things about it. I'm not escaping this issue. The good thing is that most of the difficulties, if not all, have always been resolved. As Dominique said, thanks to a positive attitude, a constructive attitude from our authorities, the Commission and the ACP Secretariat. Without them, without their understanding and their positive attitude, I think certain problems would have been major obstacles and probably would have jeopardized the work of BizClim. But they have always been resolved. give you just a couple of examples. You know, we work with contractors, and that's a fact. We work with consultants, that's a fact. It's also a fact that most of the consultants, I'm sorry to say, they don't really comply with our requirements. That's what we observe, and that's our position. However, we have to go through tendering. We choose the best out of those who bid. The difficulty is making use of those consultants and contractors and get the most out of that and have something that is useful, that we can use, and with which our beneficiary is happy. That's a major difficulty. And what Patricia said, that we work every day, we are involved in even in the details, approving everything. Basically, it is because we want to work on a daily basis with our contractors, experts, beneficiaries, and others to make sure that we don't miss an opportunity, we don't pay a lot of money. Even, well, I mean, 200,000 euro is a lot of money for me, so, and I take that seriously. And unfortunately, it would be much easier to just say to a consultant, well, after all, we are not happy. The report, we put it on the shelf, and that's it. So a major difficulty and a time-consuming thing is to really handhold the contractors, consultants, etc. And that means, as I said, daily involvement. This is one difficulty. The other one, when there is really a problem and we disagree, it could be litigation. And litigation is time-consuming, it's expensive. And we have almost come to that in a number of contracts. Luckily, it hasn't come to that, but we were really, very, very close. If we have ACP Secretariat or the Commission who are not supportive, what would we do? Two things. Either we just pay and, shut up, but we are frustrated, we are unhappy, because we are not serving our partners as we should, or go to litigation, and that we will be the first one to suffer, because without any support we would not be able even to litigate, pay the cost of the litigation and things like that. As I said, luckily it has always been a positive attitude, and we have always done the right thing. I'll give you a couple of examples. With one contractor, we refused all the reports. We didn't want to pay till the Commission, the ACP Secretariat intervened, and we agreed on a discount, let's say, or we retained some funding, and it was a negotiation, and at the end, the contractor took the money, was unhappy, but he took whatever we offered. We were happy because at the end of the day, the message was very clear. If you work with us, you have to perform. And if you don't perform, there is a problem. And we would never have been strong to that extent if we didn't have the support of our authority. I think these are the kind of problems that we have faced. There are, of course, other minor problems, but the good thing really, and I'm astonished, and a lot of people who say it's difficult to work with beneficiaries who want to take advantage of the project for their own benefit, etc. I must really say it has almost been the exception that is not worth discussion here. We have worked with people who are committed, who want to make good use of the project. And why? Maybe because we have the right partners. But I think it's not only that. It's also because of the visibility and communication, because of the name of BizClim, etc., that those people we are working with prefer to use the opportunity given to them to profile themselves, even in their own country, to speak, to be able to speak to the right people, etc., because we are giving them an opportunity through this press, media coverage, a lot of things. So I think the name of BizClim, the fact that it is very visible, after all, in many places we have ministers coming, prime ministers, to the workshops and conferences, etc. I'm sorry, the only thing that is of interest to you as a beneficiary, or even somebody, a staff of a beneficiary, is to make the program work, the project work, and not try to do silly things like taking advantage of this or that. I'm saying the other really problems, they exist, but they are not worth mentioning here. There are other problems as well that we have encountered, but as I said, really, I'm ready to put that on paper. We will put most of them in our final report, but again, the good thing is that we have always solved the problems to our at least satisfaction, and also basically to the satisfaction of everybody, but with some penalties and things like that, and that's life. You have to, if you work with us, you have to live with that. The other thing is, it breaks my heart sometimes who certain companies, I'll give an example because I think it's a good one. We have worked with a company to support the EU-Africa, the EU Business Forum in Ethiopia. They have changed, because we have asked to, they have changed the team leader 3 times. They lost a lot of money on that. They have changed the report many times. They have printed them, published them in good quality, while they didn't foresee that in the beginning, etc. They have done it. I know for a fact, we know that they have lost a lot of money on that project. They haven't complained. They are not complaining today. And I think that's because it's also, for them, a business card. It's like, you know, we have worked with a BizClim program and we have brought it to a good end, and it's a successful project. And if you're a good business person, you don't try to get the most out of an immediate project, but you look forward and you think about the future. So problems, there are so many. I think there are even contractors here, they are smiling now, but I know that there have been problems. But believe me, with the attitude that we all have in running this program, managing this program, solving them is just, I mean, it's not too difficult. Thank you. I'm sorry, to Madame from Sudan, yeah. Madame from Sudan, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, the duration of BizClim is too short, and then we try to do what we can do, like the CARICOM project. We have done it because in their minds and in terms of preparations, they were ready. What we have given them is that final push to sit together as specialists and really draft the regulations. So there hasn't been much of discussion about fundamental things where disagreement could happen, and then you need a lot of time to come to a consensus, etc. When we supported UHADA, the our organization for the harmonization of law in West Africa, UHADA, we took just one small act and we helped UHADA prepare the act. So it's a small one. I don't even, well, I remember, but it's not the point. So that means that, yes, indeed, there are projects, there are things that unfortunately we will reject simply because, you know, they demand too much time. Another example is UEMOA. When we accepted to support UEMOA, I think the project itself has been reformulated probably, I'm not exaggerating, I think at least 5 times. Fundamentally changed, simply because UEMOA wanted a project over 3 years, and we had just a couple of months to implement the project. So we reformulated We worked with CNUSED, how you say it, etc. So yes, we have then to adjust our, I say the formulation of the project. But when we accept a project, we do our best really to bring it to a good end.
Thank you for that. Anyone else would like to join the discussion? Yes, sir.
I don't want to join the discussion. Je n'ai pas de questions. Je voudrais simplement, comme vice-président.
I don't have any questions, but just as Vice President of the Chamber of Commerce of Belgium, Luxembourg, and the ACP countries, I would like to give my sentiments on the meeting that we've just held. One, I am happy to be here with you this afternoon, and I would like to congratulate the whole BizClim team for the work that they have accomplished. Two, I still have learned a few things in spite of my gray hair, and I will learn from them. I will use them as inspiration. I realize that many of our goals are the same. Three, and to explain all of this, I would like to say the three main goals of CBEL ACP are: one, the promotion of partnerships between European and African enterprises. If African enterprises need European enterprises, our enterprises also need African enterprises, and that would ensure a future for the African enterprises as well as ours. Another point which we have touched upon is finding the appropriate funding for development of SMEs in ACP countries, which we call meso-finance, 50,000 to 500,000 euros. An SME does need 5 million euros. So that's the missing link. Well, with our Belgian partners, Lexit and FITS, we need clusters. This is something I learned today. We need special areas or special sectors to put together the development projects or propose development projects for a given country or region. As was said by Mr. Netter here, we need to establish proper bases. We need a proper business climate and proper business legislation. And we also need to respect ecosystems because it's very important if you want to do a proper job. So thanks to each and every one of you for a job well done. And also thanks to all our friends from ACP countries with whom we maintain good relations. Thank you for your active collaboration. And that helped the program very much. I'm not going to say goodbye to BizClim, but au revoir and see you soon.
Merci, and thank you for your kind words. Thank you so much. Anyone else? Would you mind joining us up here? Thank you.
Good afternoon. Giuliano Rosciglione from the TBT program, another of this ACP EU management units on private sector development. Just a short provocative questions coming back to the challenges Mohammed Sharif was mentioning. It's been like more than 10 years, I think. We do projects through the current procedures, program estimates, and competitive negotiated procedures with contractors. Do you all, the ones that are here, the Commission, the ACP, the experts, do you all think this is the best procedure to go ahead with those programs? I personally don't think so, and I think a lot of money and time and energies are wasted in those processes and procedures. other solutions have been put in place in other programs, in other regions? Is it maybe the case before starting any BizClim 3 or 11th EGF, anything, the time to really reflect on what's the best implementation modality? CD disappeared and all the concepts didn't work somehow, but don't you think there is a bit of waste of money and resources behind those processes?
Thank you so much for that. Mehmet? Shall we take another question and then Mehmet can answer both? Was there another question? Just that one.
Well, I'm not the right person to really answer this. I can give you my own opinion, but if, and I hope that the Commission does not hear your advice, that they wait with BizClim till this is resolved, because there will be no BizClim then. So we live with the procedures, and they have their constraints, but honestly, no, we live with them, that's it, and we try to do as much as we can with them. They are not ideal, and I think the Commission knows that, so we don't even unveil anything new. But the challenge is, despite everything, despite the difficulties that I even mentioned to the ambassador, which have nothing to do with the procedures, they are simply part of our daily life. The challenge is to do the utmost within the context that we have and with the funding that we have. The rest is not really up to us, and we have no way to change it ourselves. Maybe the ACP secretary, maybe the staff of the Commission, but even then, I mean, it's probably a big thing to do. So, yeah, the question is good, but I prefer not to answer it. I prefer to say I live with it, I do my best, and somehow it works.
Just one word, there's no need to change the PRAG. I'm talking about using the current PRAG to do different things.
Thank you for clarifying that. I believe Mr. Imagna would also like to add.
Merci pour la question.
Now, with regard to the development of the private sector, I think that your question has been partially answered. Now, you've the joint ACP-EU program, and there's a need, I think, to put into place a platform for supporting dialogue in the private sector. I think it's if we put in place this platform, we will see the putting into place of principles that will allow us to regionalize things in order to focus on having everything closer to the beneficiary. There would be an added value at a local level, and we would have complementary actions. And so we need to work together with our European partners in order to ensure that the procedures are more flexible. But we also need to be as close as possible to the beneficiary and in the strategy and reforms we put into place. And I think that's something that is novel. And sometimes we do need a political will as well. But we have managed to make some progress. We had a meeting in December. We had some proposals. We've managed to get started, and in the joint council on the 29th of May, the ministers have asked us to put this platform into place as quickly as possible, and we are going to need some generosity, creativity, innovation in order to ensure that we can use what's there but make it more effective, more practical, and something that can benefit the populations. And we need to have micro companies on board as well, because they are the target that we want to reach. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Magna. I hope that question was covered. Are you happy? Great, thank you. I believe there's another question from CTA.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you very much for the invitation, and thank you for the team from BISCLIM for the work done, and all the best. It's just more a feedback, actually, and on all the conversations we had this afternoon. CTA being an institution, a joint institution, active for more than 30 years, and working a lot with the private sector, which includes farmers. We sometimes forget farmers, including agribusiness, SMEs, but of course in the agri-food and agriculture sector. And most of what I was going to say has been said by my colleague from the ACP Secretariat, and I think in whatever format, it's difficult sometimes to change from one day to another, procedures and mechanisms, but what can certainly be changed and strengthened is that most of it goes to the ACP organizations themselves, to the ACP private sector themselves, and that I think that collectively we can do something, because sometimes it's easier just to rely on external resources, and whatever good they are, you never change the fundamentals. And that we are in a position in a few years to say those budgets available are handled directly by the organizations themselves, and for that they need capacity strengthening, and that I think is the best we can do all together. We have just finished a Fiji forum that actually my colleague from SEDA in the Caribbean was referring to with PIPSO. They are in the room. We have done the same with CABA in the Caribbean, and they were excellent, but with, of course, the constraints that they are not strong enough in terms of capacity, staff, etc. And I think is what we have to do, to put our efforts there. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your input. Well, I would ask if somebody else has a question or not. If not, yes, please, sir.
Oui, bonsoir. Je suis
Good afternoon. I'm Serge Mbeda. I'm a consultant in the Congolese, the ODC embassy here in Brussels. I don't have any question as such, but I have a comment. I'd like to thank BISCLIM for the work they've carried out over these last few years, especially when it comes to professionalism. My country, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, very much benefited from BISCLIM, and I think there's going to be a vacuum left by the program. A lot of the participants have expressed a desire to have this program continue in another form. That would be something very useful, I think. I'd also like to add a comment, or at least support a point that has been made previously by Mr. Sharif. This is with regard to the quality of the work carried out by the consultants. I've worked with BISCLIM, and I must confirm that the work was of very high quality. Things were revised and revised and revised until the level of quality was sufficient in order for the work to be published. So that's all I have to say. I'd like to thank all of you, and I do hope that we'll be able to work under another format. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Of course, Mr. Sharif is going to speak.
No, just an anecdote. Serge is actually an ACP consultant. Well, he's based in Brussels, but he's from DRC. And we have a European consultant who has helped a lot, and if we had more time, I would say many good things about Dominique Bolmin. Monique, pardon, pas Dominique, Monique Bolmin. Monique Bolmin has helped us in an incredible way in Guadeloupe. And the repercussions, the work that has started can only continue with experts like Serge, Monique, and others who are very close to the private sector. They work, Monique, the first thing she said, come, I know an investor, a French investor who is interested. And so I went to Paris, we had a discussion to see what is the feedback of an investor, not another consultant. Herself, she works a lot with these investors, and she's a lawyer, actually. And And so that's the way we try to work as well, to work really with people who have expertise, who are in contact with the private sector, and they are themselves, of course, from the private sector. There are so many other projects that I hope that the final report will maybe say a few words about the other. It would be quite unfair that smaller projects that we have developed and assistance would not be profiled somehow. And I'm thankful to Serge, who said that DRC has benefited from BizClim. I even forgot about it. I forgot even about another small project that we did in Guinea-Bissau about partnerships in agribusiness. So there are a number of things that I think BizClim does really as part of what we called our quest for innovative approaches. That sometimes if they are too small, or unfortunately we forgot about them. But we are there, and I think Serge can give his testimony. We do our best, really, the utmost, to make every country happy. But unfortunately, many countries cannot be happy simply because we work at the regional level. With 10 million euro, you have no choice than working at the regional level. And so there are other countries who say, well, BizClim, we say many good things about it, but they have never worked in my country. And that's normal. We don't work at the national level unless it is a pilot project, unless it is something special that we want to develop and test and replicate in other places. So that's also just an apology for those many countries where we haven't really done serious work. But I'm sure they have somehow participated in regional meetings and regional programs as well. Let me just, before you give me, even because I cannot wait really, to first of all thank all of you, the Commission, the ACP Secretariat, and those who are here, Maurice Vermeersch. We know each other for a number of years, and so we know who does what, and we learn from each other every day, basically. The private sector that is represented there, Alici coming from so far, and many others. But I would like to say from my heart, all my gratitude to my team. Dominic, that I know for such a long time now. I'll not say more except that all my gratitude, all my thanks. Patricia, she's changed sides. She was on the right, she's now on the left. But she has been of tremendous help at all levels. She's a joy in the office. She's great in everything. Marco, he has been with us for just a couple of years, not from the beginning, but I think from, I'm sorry, let me say this. We didn't consult each other to say who says what. I mean, all what they have said is improvised, probably they had prepared, but I was not informed about it. So I'm so happy to hear Marco say what he says, and I can tell you he was very negative in the beginning. So he didn't even believe much, I would say, in many things that are done by donors, etc. And when I hear what he says today, I'm so happy to see the change. Julia, incredible assistant, really. It's incredible. And sometimes I tell her, Julia, don't forget to do this, and say, oh, stupid Mohammed, don't ask, because it's always done. So I'm so happy with really with the team. And as Danai said, I really regret that we haven't done it more, taken interns in BizClim more often, for many reasons, because it's not easy, because SOGES has to solve all kind of visa problems and work permits, and I don't know what exactly. But that really my demand for the ACP Secretariat for next BizClim or anything else is to think about it and to encourage PMUs to have interns. And I'm sure it's a help to us, but it's a help, I hope, to Danai. But more than that, it's a relationship that will remain forever after what we have done together for just 3 months. And that, I think, should be encouraged. So thank you very much for this opportunity, and many thanks for those who cannot thank. In Tunisia, we say, never thank a friend, thank a friend. I thanked my colleagues because they are friends and colleagues. So, but there are others that I will not even name here who are really friends, and I will not thank them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mehmet, and thank you all for being here. But I'd like to thank you and the team, because I would imagine it's a hard day, and it's a hard period, and you've been extremely gracious and very, very well, very happy, and now I can't remember the word, how we say it in Portuguese, but it doesn't matter. You've all been wonderful. So I thank you, and I thank you all for coming and for your input, and the private sector beneficiaries and contractors and the Commission, and for everyone to be here. It was very important that this workshop was held, because I think there were many questions that still had to be asked and comments that had to be made, and the discussion we had here was very important to maybe touch those points and refresh certain things that maybe were forgotten throughout the 5 years that BizClim has worked. Thank you so much for having. And we would also like to let you know that this discussion is also available on YouTube. Indirect. So we're going out to the whole world. to the 3 regions. So that is, so you, no pressure, but you're being seen around the world. So thank you so much, and thank you for letting me moderate or be part of this workshop, or whatever the word would be for my position. I enjoyed it very much, and we would like to invite you all for a cocktail that we have downstairs, and it's always good to make a toast. So we'll invite you down for a toast. Thank you so much. Thank you, and have a great holiday.